Good morning. For those of you who haven't had your coffee yet, I'm going to be your coffee this morning. So I'm here to talk to you about my journey behind the 99, but more importantly, they say every overnight success is years in the making. Our success is no different. It's been 9 years of a lot of hard work, but actually it's been 20 years. But before I get into the details of the actual 99, I want to take you through just some thinking. I'm one of the many hats I wear is I lecture at the medical school in Kuwait. I'm a clinical psychologist by training before going into business. And this is something that maybe you see, you all have it inside you. It's called a white blood cell. And white blood cells' main function is to attack disease. If there's bacteria that comes into your body, or a virus, or a worm, it's the white blood cells that attack it to make you safe. The problem is though, like any system, white blood cells can also do the wrong thing. And you can end up with what are called autoimmune diseases. And that's when the white blood cell doesn't distinguish between good things and bad things. It just needs to do its job. And I want you to hold that thought in your mind, but I'm going to give you an image to connect to it, which is the following. There are many people in all societies who have self-appointed themselves the white blood cells of society. They're there to attack, destroy anything that's new. Doesn't matter if it's good for you, doesn't matter if it's bad for you, all that matters is that they're threatened by it. But if it exists in the body, it makes sense that it exists in society. I'm going to take you through two experiments that were done in the mid-20th century. One is called the Stanford Prison Experiment. The Stanford Prison Experiment was conducted in Stanford. There were psychology students who were taken, all reasonably well-adjusted males in their 20s. Nobody knew anybody else. But everybody knew they were part of this experiment. And the person who supervised the experiment decided this group was randomly selected to become the guards, and this group was randomly selected to become the prisoners. And so he gave them uniforms. And the prisoners, even though they weren't real, had to go through the whole thing of fingerprinting, mug shots, into the jail. And what happened is this didn't last past a few days because the prison guards, who were only prison guards because they were wearing a different color, started torturing the prisoners psychologically. Even though intellectually they all understood they were all students of psychology, in an experiment on a much more primitive level, this distinguishing thing between me and you, self and other, was enough for this experiment to actually have to get stopped. So how do you stop that? Take you to another experiment. This stuff we've known for years. The Robbers Cave experiment, which happened in Oklahoma, also in the mid-20th century. In the Robbers Cave experiment, kids were taken to a 200-acre camp in Oklahoma. They were split between two groups. They didn't know each other, but they were all the same socioeconomic status. They were all from the same religion, same background, same money. Everything was the same. And they got to know each other. Leadership developed, and people got to know, and different leaders emerged. And then they brought them together in a color war where they would fight during basketball games and soccer games and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, you had in-group and out-group. People were pushing each other out, and this group was better than that group. There was, if you will, sectarianism happening among kids from the same socioeconomic background. What it took to stop that in this experiment was for them to come up with superordinate goals. In other words, they would have a car come and break down during the color war when people from both teams had to get together to help make the car a better car. All of a sudden, it didn't matter what team you belonged to. It didn't matter if you were part of the blue team or the red team. All that mattered was basically that you had this problem that you had to solve together. So superordinate goals are very important. This thinking takes you out of the realm of there's a limited pie that I want a piece of. There's only one way to win and one way to lose, right? Because ultimately, what happens is that's a very inward focused, very, very white blood cell approach to problem solving. And takes you out of the realm of that into the realm of how can I create a new pie that I can have a piece of. And I see too much of what's going on when entrepreneurship is not promoted, and I speak from a country that has the potential to do that, but 92% of the population works for the government, that the focus becomes how much more of the oil pie can I have, not how many more pies can I create through the oil. And that's the only real solution that you have to not ending up with cake. Now, this, the red shirt, blue shirt problem has its different iteration depending on what country you go to. It's there in every country. Even the countries that are the most free and the most democratic still have their issues. But being a Kuwaiti, I can tell you that I didn't need the Robbers Cave experiment. I didn't need the Stanford Prison experiment to explain to you how people get together with a subordinate goal. All I need is this slide, right? Because when Kuwait was invaded, it didn't matter what your religion was, what your background was, what tribe you belonged to. People worked together for a subordinate goal, and hopefully we're able to pull ourselves together without having to face another one that's that extreme. But what does that thinking have to do with the 99? Well, in 1954, Roger Bannister became the first man to ever run the mile in under 4 minutes. Before him, no one else had been able to do it in recorded history. But when the media covered it, within 3 years, 17 people were able to do the same thing. Think about that for a second. 3 years, 17 people. When the impossible became possible, people started wanting to gravitate towards it. That's the power of ideas. Why go far again? A year and a half ago, when Tunisia fell, you had Egypt falling, now you have problems in Syria, Yemen, etc. Again, same thing. When people saw the impossible possible, people started to gravitate towards it. But this is something in the real world. What does this have to do with the 99? What does this have to do with fiction? In 1970, Sesame Street became the first ever show to introduce an African-American couple that wasn't a cab driver or a cook. It was a couple that was equal to everybody else. The white blood cells in Mississippi in the American South reacted swiftly. They banned the show. It took the New York Times to name and shame them for them to reverse their decision within a year. Cut to the 1980s. The Cosby Show, still the third longest running serial in television history. The Cosby Show did something very brilliant, albeit simple. When the show was first developed, Bill Cosby was supposed to be a limousine driver. His wife was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. They were going to have 4 kids. By the time it actually came to television, he was a doctor, she was a lawyer, and they had a 5th child who showed that being a good parent can lead to going to college. And the biggest criticism of the Cosby Show was also its biggest praise, is that it was an unrealistic portrayal of African Americans in the media. But guess what? Not only did it change how white America saw black America, it also changed how black America saw itself. Because all of a sudden, in a very neutral way, people saw a family that just happened to be black. The focus was not being black. And that lesson didn't go unlearned. How many of you have seen the show 24? Anybody seen 24? So 24 had 2 bad white presidents, one of whom looked like and acted like Richard Nixon in the 60s during Watergate. They had 2 good black presidents, strong, young, brothers, ethical. One was killed, one was almost killed. The Kennedys. And the following year, who comes to power? President Obama. Did 24 put Obama in power? No. I mean, it was developed by Republicans, very die-hard Republicans. But did it help? Absolutely. Because all of a sudden, America saw a neutral figure who happened to be black in that position. Now, there's a part of the brain called the mirror neuron, and the mirror neuron basically lights up whether you learn something by actually learning it on yourself, by doing it in trial and error, or whether you learn it vicariously by watching somebody else do it. Same part of the brain lights up. So I'm going to take you now on my journey with fiction and working with tolerance. This is the Mansouriya supermarket in Kuwait. When I graduated from college in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, I came back to Kuwait, and a few months after I came back, a man had just been fired from his job because of his religion. And that's not even the bad part of the story. It gets better. The guy that fired him gave out leaflets to the community apologizing that had he known this guy's religion, he wouldn't have hired him to begin with. And I thought, my God, what planet did I just land on? So I wrote about this in the newspapers, but who's going to read a 23-year-old's writing in English in Kuwait? So it didn't hit the spot for me, and I wrote and illustrated my first book. And this book was intended for adults. But then I got an award for children's literature from UNESCO, and didn't know whether that was an insult or a compliment. But I worked with it. And the book very much was simple. It was about a land called Bouncy Land where everybody was round. In that society, they judged you based on 2 values, how high you bounce and how fast you roll. That's it. The main character is born as a half circle, can't do either. He's ostracized, they make fun of him, he tries to change himself, it doesn't work. At the end, though, his difference ends up saving everybody and forces society to reevaluate the importance of diversity. Basically, there's a flood. In the flood, the circles can't control themselves, but he's now a boat. So he's able to, so basically shows you that heroism is contextual. It's the context that makes you the hero, not your skin color or your religion, so on and so forth. That book I tried to find a publisher. And I didn't know much when I was 23, but I knew I didn't want to give the rights away for 200 dinars. So I tried to find a publisher, couldn't find one, and then I went to one of my uncles, and I think I became the first children's book in the world that has a real estate ad in the back of it to finance it. But I took the money, and I learned publishing, I learned distributing, I learned how to deal with booksellers that say, yeah, we know there are 50 books that are gone, but somebody must have stolen them. We didn't get a penny. Right. But that's what was my introduction, and I started kind of experimenting with bookmarks and stuff like that. And then when I won the award from UNESCO for the book, that led to a 3-book contract with a proper publisher. And book 2 came out. Book 2 is about a land called Rainbow Land, where they judge you not according to how high you bounce and how fast you roll. No. They're more sophisticated in their prejudice. Because in Rainbow Land, they judge you according to the color of your bow tie and where it is on the rainbow. So red is better than orange, better than yellow, all the way down to violet, the worst place in society. And as any good society might, they have marriage laws. If you have a red bow tie, you can't marry anybody with a blue ribbon, because what does red and blue give you? Purple, the last place on the rainbow. So he asked them why they live their life in that way, and they point up to the sky and say it's the natural order of things, pointing at the rainbow. And then he points to the reflection of the rainbow in the river and shows them what's on top is now on the bottom, and nobody's better than anybody based on those values. That book did fine. Book 3 got banned, and I quit writing at the age of 27. In book 3, he goes to a land called Thailand, spelled T-I-E land. In Arabic, it was called Madinat al-Rabat. And in Thailand, he basically, Bouncy Jr. sees a picture of his dad next to a character 10 times the size of his father. And he asks his father what this giant is, and which is basically a symbol for grandiosity, and what's this new thing? There's a necktie. Every book introduces something small. So now there's neckties. So he says, well, these guys, nobody knows why they're so big. They're just bigger than everybody else. But they have this law. And the law is you can never wear the ties of your ties. You can never buy a new tie. You have to wear the tie of your father, who wears the tie of his father before him. So they go to see this place. And for some reason, nobody knows why, all the Thailanders are now the same size as everybody else. They're not any bigger. But because of their laws, their ties are disproportionate to their body size. So when they roll, their ties get under them, make them slow and inefficient. And when they bounce, their ties cover their eyes. They don't know where they're going to land. And those that take off their ties in protest get shunned. So the main character asks, see the law, and the law says you must wear of the ties of your fathers, not the ties of your fathers. So they get every tailor in town, every tie in town, and from the same material, they cut out new ties to better serve their modern day needs. So I get asked point blank, this is about the Quran, isn't it? And I said, huh? I was 27 years old. My son Hamid had just been born. I wrote it for him about tradition and modernity. I was not thinking about religion. But clearly the person who was making the decisions was. And I said, my books are intended to reflect the reader's soul. Clearly they worked because that's what's on your mind. But do you think somebody reading this in Japan or the US is going to think Quran? It's about tradition and modernity. It didn't fly. I went to the Awqaf ministry in Kuwait, who pre-ordered a few thousand copies for their book club as support. Went back, still didn't fly, and at the age of 27, I quit writing. But I came back 5 years later, armed with my 99 superheroes. Now, in the interim, I was working at Bellevue Hospital in New York in the Survivors of Political Torture program. My patients came out of Arab prisons because I speak Arabic. My patients came out of Iraq, Syria, the who's who, basically, of the torture crowd. And the one story I kept hearing again and again was of people growing up to idolize their leaders as heroes, only to be tortured by them. And torture is a terrible enough thing as it is, but when your hero is torturing you, that breaks you on so many levels. I took a break. A few months after I take my break, 9/11 happens, and I don't know what to do. I just know I have to do something. At that point, I had 3 sons. Now I have 5 boys. And the thing is that I want to share with you a story also from my medical, these are my boys, share with you from my medical school life, is that for me, I get very concerned about who my kids' role models are going to be. And one story I want to share with you is something that happens every year in February when I lecture at the medical school on the biological basis of behavior. I always give out to the students 2 articles. one from the New York Times, one from New York Magazine. I take away the name of the reporter, the name of the city, everything's gone except the fact. The first article is about a group called the Party of God who wants to ban Valentine's Day because Valentine, in case you didn't know, is a Christian saint. Red is made illegal, no flowers that day. And any boys and girls caught flirting get married off immediately. The second one is about a woman complaining because 6 bearded men in minivans pulled up to interrogate her on the street to talk to a man who wasn't related to her. And I asked the students where they think this takes place. The first one, it's almost always Saudi. The second one, they're split between Saudi and Afghanistan. What blows their mind every year is the first one takes place in India. It's the party of a Hindu god. It has nothing to do with Islam. The second one was in New York, the Jewish community. What's troubling for me as a father of 5 young boys is that the Hindu community and the Jewish community reacted to this very healthily. In other words, they called this behavior Talibanization. Good Hindus don't act this way. This is Islam's influence on Hinduism. The Jewish woman in upstate New York called these 6 bearded Jewish, Orthodox Jewish men, stupid Talibans. Same message. But what do my students say? They say it's us. And when a group starts to self-identify as extreme, we have a huge problem. So my story with the 99 starts with cigarettes. I don't smoke. I've never been a smoker. But it starts with the cigarettes. Because when I had my first child, my wife sent me to buy hilba, which is an herb women take in Kuwait when they give birth. So I went to buy the hilba, and the guy selling the hilba had a spoon going through 2 fingers and a cigarette going through the same 2 fingers in the other direction. And as he's putting the hilba in the bag, you don't know how much of it is tobacco and how much of it is hilba. And I thought, you're not taking this. But of course, I lost that argument. And then I started thinking. I was in business school at the time. I thought, well, if the hilba was done in a Western kind of way and packaged, would I have a problem? So I developed a business plan. But then the US invaded Iraq. It's 2003. I'm 32 years old. I'd completed 3 master's degrees and my doctorate. And I didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. And I found myself on a pilgrimage that every Kuwaiti makes once a summer from Edgware Road to Harrods in a taxi cab. And in that cab ride, I started thinking, I didn't know what I was going to do. My sister turned to me and said, Naif, you told me you'd go back to writing, you know, after school. And I said, yeah, I remember. And she said, well, what do you think? And I thought, shut up. What are you talking about? I have my PhD, I have my MBA, go back to writing for kids. I didn't intend to write to kids to begin with. So I wanted her to shut up, but I couldn't say shut up because my mother was there. So I said, somewhat for me to go back now, it's got to be something that has the potential of Pokemon. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. That wasn't me saying I could do Pokemon. That was me saying shut up. She understood, she shut up. And as any New York psychologist would do at that point, I started to free associate. The room was quiet, the cab was quiet. I said Pokemon. My next thought was there had been a fatwa against Pokemon, actually banning it in some parts of this region. My next thought was, my God, what's happened to Islam? And who's making these random decisions for my children? My next thought was of Allah and how disappointing He must be. My next thought was that Allah had 99 attributes. And ironically, it brought me full circle back to Pokemon by the time I got to Harrods. And I had the initial spark. I didn't let my sister draw. I gave her a small piece of the company as a thank you for asking me the right question at the right time of my life. But I ran with it. Did the business plans, did the financials, wrote the first few stories, and I developed my pitch. And I went to investors and I said this. I said, if you look at the superheroes that exist in the world today, back then, it's almost 10 years ago now, they're primarily from North America, based on Judeo-Christian archetypes. So like the prophets, all the superheroes are missing parents. Superman's parents die on Krypton. Batman's parents die when he's 6. Spider-Man's raised by his aunt and uncle. And all of them, like the prophets, have a message delivered from above through a messenger. The prophets get it from God through Gabriel, but Peter Parker's taking the photograph when the spider comes in from above and gives him his message through a bite. Superman is not only sent from another planet, or the heavens, to Earth, but he's sent in a ship, a spaceship, by his parents to new parents, the story of Moses. And then you hear the voice of his father saying to Earth, I have sent to you my only son. That's the voice of God in the Bible. The storylines are secular. There's no religion in them. But they're universal values that the Bible shares with all of humanity. So my pitch to my investors is nobody has done this with our religion. Let me do this. Let me go in, take some concepts that are universal in nature and create IP based on it. I was able to raise, in my first round of financing, $7 million, primarily from Kuwait and Saudi. But also the first $1 million came from my classmates in business school. So I have investors from the US and Mexico and China and Lebanon. And I tell people of all my accomplishments, the one I'm proudest of, is that I'm the only The one I'm proudest of is I'm the only Kuwaiti that went to Beirut and actually came out with money. It's never been done before. So I'm going to need, excuse me? It's going to be 20 more minutes. I was given 40 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to put you inside my head right now, but I'm going to warn you. It's a little bit like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you won't be able to leave. Okay? So 2003, Baghdad had fallen. One story we learn about every year. My parents learned about it. Their parents learned about it. I learned about it. Now my kids learn about it. How the Muslim world was. And one of the stories that best emphasizes that is the story of the fall of Baghdad in 1258. Baghdad falls, the books of Dar al-Hikmah get thrown in the Tigris library, in the Tigris River. The Tigris River gets changed because of the amount of ink in it, turns black. We all hear this story. I rewrote that story. So in my version, the librarians know this is going to happen, so they get together an alchemical solution that would mix with 99 stones would be able to save all that culture and history and civilization in the books. But the Mongols get there first, the books and the solution get thrown in the river. The librarians escape, dip the stones into the river, and suck up all that knowledge that we think is lost to our civilization. Those stones are then smuggled as 3 prayer beads, as 33 stones each, to Arabia and to Andalusia and Spain, where they're safe for over 200 years. But in 1492, 2 important things happen. The first is the fall of Grenada. The second is Columbus gets lost and finds America. So let me go back to my story. 33 of the stones are smuggled onto the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria and are spread in the New World. 33 go on the Silk Road to China, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, and 33 are spread between Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And now it's 2012, and you have 99 heroes from 99 different countries. So central to the concept is the Nur Stone. The Nur Stones have a self-updating mechanism in them. The main bad guy doesn't want the stones to update, because if they don't update, he can control knowledge and therefore control the 99 for his purposes, whereas the main good guy couldn't care less. In fact, initially, the bad guy convinced them that he's the good guy and makes them wear all the same cookie-cutter type fascist uniforms. Here are some of the characters that we have. They're from 99 countries. So we have a Saudi character there, an Emirati one, Hungary, US, so on and so forth. So in the world of the 99, they're from 99 different countries. It doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter what your religion is. In fact, we never discuss it. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or girl. If you're a girl, it doesn't matter if your hair is covered or not. All that matters is your power, your values, your ability, and whether or not it can help us today. Not the past, today. What do you have to give and contribute today? And of course, we have a Bahraini member of the 99, which we launched a couple years ago, who controls water. He'll be showing up in the animated series, already out in the comic books. This is what he looks like in both. Now, we've been very lucky. The world media has been very, very supportive of us. We've done all kinds of media, tens of thousands of articles, hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, talking about our business, but at the same time talking about those values that Islam shares with the rest of humanity, which was basically what we wanted to do to begin with. This led to many opportunities, including the 99 being licensed in 12 different languages. So this is not us putting up money to do this. We actually sold the rights in Chinese, in Indonesian, in English, in Arabic, in Hindi, in Urdu, in Turkish, Malaysian. Beyond that, the 99 Village theme park opened in Kuwait 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And in the 99 Village theme park, basically, it's 20,000 meters, 20 rides, all on the concept of the 99. And we've done 2 merchandising deals, one in Turkey and one in Spain, where companies in the EU bought our IP to create products for the EU. We recently announced an association with Gulf Bank that's launching the 99 bank account in Kuwait, so ATM cards, checks, so on and so forth. But perhaps the biggest thing we've done, which hopefully by end of summer you all would have seen, is the animated TV series. It's a joint venture with Endemol. It's written in Hollywood by the writers behind Ben 10 and Batman and Star Wars. It's in 3D CGI. And when it comes out on television, it'll be the highest quality animation the world has seen. Not Kuwait, not the Gulf, not the Middle East, but the world. There's nothing that can stop us from creating world-class things. And I'm going to take a minute now and show you a clip from the trailer.
It is said that all the darkness of the world could be shattered by the light in just one pure heart.
Imagine then the hope that would spread if 99 of the pure-hearted came together as one.
These stones, they chose us to do something big.
one of 99. Nur is Arabic for light. Each bestows a powerful gift upon its bearer. The stone was right to choose you. Now you must choose your future.
It's pretty clear. I'm part of something bigger. A new family, maybe. The 99. Why are the stones suddenly appearing now?
I believe it is the will of the stones themselves. They're bringing you stone bearers together for a great purpose. The gemstone was not meant for revenge.
Then what were they made for?
To make things better.
Mine has made things better. For me.
All of us who have newer stones need to work together to help everyone else.
No one else can use your stone. The stone was meant for you.
So we've written 26 half-hour episodes, 13 hours of animation have been sold. The first 4 episodes written as a film for television. That film debuted at the prestigious New York Film Festival. It's been Los Angeles, Qatar, Emirates, and this summer it'll be at the prestigious Edinburgh Film Festival, which we just announced yesterday. But one of the things I'm very proud of is that the 99 film actually showed under the patronage of His Highness the Emir in Kuwait at the beginning of February, which was a nice support for the project. Now, the TV series has been sold globally. It's the first time that IP from the region has been sold outside the region. We've sold it in America to the Hub, into 60 million American homes. We sold it to Cartoon Network in Asia. We sold it to NBC here in the region. We sold it in South Africa. We sold it in Europe. We sold it in South America. Public TV in Australia, ABC bought it there. It's coming out globally. And it's the first time IP from here. And basically, the trick was using those values that we share with the rest of humanity. Now, one of the fun things I got to do in this one of the dreams, I think, of anybody, and not many people have been able to achieve this, I'm very proud of this, but basically I saw an opportunity. When President Obama was going to reach out to the Muslim world, I saw an opportunity. Because when he became president, Marvel, the owners of Spider-Man and X-Men, put out a special copy of Spider-Man that had on the cover Obama with Spider-Man. And everybody now knew what Marvel knew, which is Obama likes comic books. So I went to DC Comics, their competitor, and I said, listen, Marvel beat you, but I can help you implement Obama's vision in the fictional world. They said, how? I said, well, when he reaches out from Cairo, how about we have my characters reach back out to the Justice League of America, to Batman and Superman? It was a far-stretched thing, because last time they had done this was 1996, but guess what? They loved it, and the books came out in America that have Batman, Superman, and the Wonder Woman that actually found her clothes for the first time in 70 years, working with the 99 towards common goals. And the same theories I talked about in terms of conflict and superordinate goals and working together happen here, because in the beginning, both groups of superheroes don't trust each other. In fact, Superman punches one of my characters in book 1, but then they find out that it's the bad guys that cause the distrust, and the stories move over to trust. So it's one of the ways that the themes I talked about in the beginning of the lecture, I've implemented actually in the work I'm doing. Now, this book had a lot of fans and a lot of critics, but first hear directly from one of the fans.
Over the past year, the United States has been reaching out and listening. We've joined interfaith dialogues and held town halls, roundtables and listening sessions with thousands of people around the world, including many of you. And like so many people, you've extended your hand in return, each in your own way, as entrepreneurs and educators, as leaders of faith and of science. I have to say, perhaps the most innovative response was from Dr. Naif Al Mutawa of Kuwait, who joins us here tonight. Where is Dr. Mutawa? Right here. His comic books have captured the imagination of so many young people with superheroes who embody the teachings and tolerance of Islam. After my speech in Cairo, he had a similar idea. So in his comic books, Superman and Batman reached out to their Muslim counterparts. And I hear they're making progress, too. Absolutely.
So we sold it to the Hub, to 60 million American homes. We did a deal with DC Comics, the first time in almost 20 years they allow this. The President of the United States talks about the project. What could possibly go wrong? Well,